everyone, good morning. I'm Regina and this is Multiverse of Modernity. So today is episode 30 and today we have a really interesting topic that we want to talk about. So Javi, why don't you go right ahead and explain our topic for today?
Start off the podcast, I think we have to give the listeners a bit of a background of what we're going to talk about. When we talk about globalization and modernity, the general thought process makes us lean toward Western culture and practices, right? Well, in Module 5 of our class, we learned about how different nations and societies develop their own modernities in concrete and alternative ways. These modernities are called parallel modernities, and we wanted to talk about the emergence of parallel modernities in non-Western and non-Central societies as a result of their specific cultural experiences and the subsequent impact and importance of these different modernities toward both national and international development.
Alright, thank you for that, Javi. So in this module, moving on, we identified two main arguments, which are one, the structure of development based on ongoing modernism in a non-Western society and its implications, and two, bien vivir as a social philosophy and a worldview that nations can live out. So with these main arguments, we were able to close analyze the module and fully understand how these arguments played a role throughout the entire lesson.
Now, to segue things into key theories and perspectives, we go straight into relating one of them to buen vivir, a good life. Within this, we explored the ideology of finding out what's best for countries in Asia, specifically in understanding what exactly works for them, without adhering to Western standards. Another key aspect we look to touch upon now, however, geared more towards the Middle Eastern culture, is the way their personal lives and outlooks have changed with time, and more importantly, the shift in outlooks pertaining to the impacts brought upon by modernity and the overall globalization of that area of the world.
There's other countries just like Japan. They created methods of adapting to globalization. According to Sophie Bunnick, they have changed systems by making cities more compact, which makes it more accessible for resources of the people. This includes food, transportation, and many more. Global South and Middle East countries had shifted their cultures and other societal systems, which affects the overall outlook and their livelihood as a whole. It pretty much seems that there are instances where first world countries shift or innovate their standard ways of their living, while those in the third world or even second world countries tend to make their approach similar to the first worlds, or for some reason, there are cases where they lean more on the Western culture.
Thanks for the recap, guys, and now it's time to get into the critiques. When we're presented with readings from other countries, this can give us a much more diverse perspective, but at the same time, it can also make it difficult to see how these concepts are relevant in our own lives in our own country. Thus, the inclusion of the discussion on housing by the urban poor in the Philippines was really helpful in showing us how we as Filipinos take part in forming alternative modernities, and this allowed students to contextualize and relate to their learnings even more. It would be good to continue to add recent or timely examples, perhaps touching on some parallel modernities that are in the works now. This would show students how ideas of modernity are constantly evolving and adapting to the state of the world.
The module was also able to give a different perspective on understanding modernity and the forms it may emulate. The readings were insightful as they conveyed a deeper look into how different nations were able to move forward using their own ideologies and understandings of modernity to further national development. More notable was how nations were able to move forward without the use of Western-centric ideas. Examples include the alternative development in the form of housing in the Philippines, urban recentralization in Japan, and the Statute of the City in Brazil. These ideas aim to progress economic growth and empower efficient city systems. Their respective governments spearhead these ideas, proving that even modernity is politically connected and motivated. The ideologies present in the module also show a connection between government and public participation in furthering parallel modernities. Though the readings offer a new take on modernity that takes society into account, the reality these communities face is the opposite. Instead of having their voices heard, these people are subject to arduous and unjust processes that only end with the people in power benefiting from the laws they have created. Moving forward, how about you guys? What are your thoughts about this?
Actually, Thea, I have a lot of thoughts about this topic because it was so filled with interesting and eye-opening materials. However, the main takeaway that I got was that though it might be difficult to have transformational effects on the national and international level, the importance of these modernities are not to be taken lightly, because these small but meaningful changes can be stepping stones to the development that we aim to achieve.
Modernity as a whole covers so many aspects of a country's development, as we've seen within this module, and also with my fellow groupmates' insights. Modernity truly breaks down the ins and outs of what works within a country, and at that, through so many different sectors of the world. Since at one point, every single country has gone through or is in the process of going through this change.
Parallel modernities empower societies to uplift their communities using methods that are free from Western ideals. While it is admirable that they are able to advance and develop by themselves, without the proper resources to sustain this, national development will not flourish.
Modernity serves as a double-edged sword. Their emergence has both upsides and detrimental effects on overall national development.
Look at the time. It goes so fast in talking about a topic that enables us to learn more about how communities go about their cultural experiences. Each culture has its nuances in how they navigate through these, utilizing parallel modernities indicates or exhibits how aiming for growth doesn't always have to uphold Western standards or ideas. That's all we have for you today, and make sure to tune in to the next episode of Multiverse of Modernity. Bye guys!